Okay. Okay. Hi guys. Good morning. If you're there. Okay. So we have almost 9 people here. Okay. So yeah. So I think this is the first time you're meeting me. Correct. Right. So let us start with introducing ourselves. Right. 1 second. Why is it so tilted? Okay. Better. Okay. Fine. So yeah. First of all, good evening to everyone. Right. So as we all know, right. So I'll. This is a crash course for your 10th board exams. Right. So my name is Akash, right? And if at all you want to know about me, right? Yeah, so I'm currently doing my integrated PhD at ISER Tirupati. I don't know whether you know the college, Indian Institute of Science, Education and Research, right? And I have been teaching chemistry for the past, I don't know, 6, 7 years, right? And recently I haven't been teaching 10th class, but yes, initial starting of the this thing, like say first 3, 4 years, is I have been teaching 10th class also, right? And what I see is definitely that you will be maybe if you come to 11th class and if you're going to enroll here, right? So you'll be seeing my face again, right? So you'll be seeing my face again, and I'll be teaching chemistry for 11th and 12th, right? So I think that is enough. That is enough introduction about me, right? So we'll start. Okay, we'll start introducing. I mean, you should start introducing yourself, right? So I don't want to pick any names, right? So just unmute yourself and tell me what's your name, which school are you from, and say which is your favorite subject in science. Like, so don't tell me that I'm a chemistry faculty, so don't tell me that it's going to be chemistry. It can be anything. It's all about your interest, right? So yeah, go on one by one.
Sir, good evening, sir. And I am Niranjan Babu, and
Okay.
I am from DA Public School, Valacheri. And my
Okay.
favorite subject in science is biology.
Biology. Good.
Yes,
Good.
sir.
Okay. Nice. Okay. Next.
Good evening, sir.
Good
I'm
evening.
Hamsini Sundar from DAV Public School, Velacheri,
Okay.
and my favorite subject in science is biology, same as well.
Biology. Okay. Nice. Okay. Next.
Hi, I'm Naomi, and like the other two, my favorite subject would be biology as well. And I'm from Stan Academy, the Pallikarnai branch.
Okay. That's nice. Okay. Thank you. Next.
Good evening,
Good
sir.
evening.
I am Akash, and I'm from DAV Public School, Valacheri.
Okay.
And my favorite subject is biology.
Okay. Fine. Next.
Good evening, sir. I'm Amrita A.S. I am from DAV Public School, Velacheri.
Hmm.
My favorite subject in science would be biology and chemistry.
Okay. That's nice. Okay. Next.
Good evening, sir. I'm Sandhya from DAV Public School. I'm interested in all the 3 subjects, physics, chemistry, as well as biology.
That's good. No partiality. Good. Fine. Next.
Good evening, sir. My name is Nirupama. I'm from DAV Public. My favorite subject is chemistry.
Chemistry. Oh, that's nice. Okay. Next.
Good evening, sir. I'm Harshida from DAV Public School, Velacheri. My favorite subject is biology.
Biology. Okay. Nice. Next. Everybody is done. Okay. I hope. Is there anyone who can unmute yourself? I think everybody is done. I think I I didn't count. Hopefully it came to about 9 and 10. Right. Okay. Fine. So like we will not have much classes, right? We will be just meeting, I think, only for 3 times, right? But if at all you're going to enroll, right? So we'll be meeting almost daily. Right? Almost daily we'll be meeting you. It is going to get over, right? You're going to write your board exam very soon, and obviously your classes will start for the next academic year. So at that time we'll be meeting very frequently. Okay. So for now, see, board exams, when it comes to 10th board exams, you really don't have to worry, right? It is not actually much of a deal, right? So your school must have prepared you enough. You must have written enough number of tests. You must have read the entire book so many times, right? But in spite of that, you might have there and there little problems, and that's why I'm here. That the problems I have to solve for you. Okay. So be confident, right? And whatever you have prepared, like what to say, the how to put it is, like say a person, right, who has prepared so much, right, who is very academically very strong but is not confident, will not be able to get that much marks, right? But a person who was least prepared, right, like say a little less preparation, but still with enough amount of confidence, like he or she will be able to do better in exams. That's how it always goes. That's how psychology works, right? Fine. So that I wanted to tell you, right? And I think that's enough for introduction, right? So I think we'll start. And don't worry, this is another, you will be studying it when you go to 11th and 12th, right? So yeah, as per the timetable, today is gonna be, hey, just give me a moment. I have to open my laptop. 1 second. I just unmute just stop my video for 2 minutes and I'll be back. Just give me a minute. Okay, right. So just a moment. I'm just downloading the assignment which is given to you. Okay, fine. So I just download it, no issues. Right, so we will start, right? So you know what is there in this chapter because obviously you would have gone through the chapter so many times, right? Okay, so we'll just, rather than me teaching you as such, right? Let us try to have a kind of discussion, right? So obviously I know the chapter name is chemical reactions and equations, if I'm not right. Chemical reactions bar equations. Okay, fine. So first, we are going to study about changes, right? As simple as that. We are going to study about changes which can happen, which can happen in a particular environment, right? So when I say changes, right, say the changes can be in the form of shape, right? Or say the changes can be in form of color, or say the changes can be in the form of phase transition. Say liquid becomes solid, solid becomes liquid, right? Say that also, and or say there is another type of change that if you want to see, you have to go to the atomic levels, right? Fine. So now one thing will be what is called as macroscopic changes, right? The other case is what is called as microscopic changes, macroscopic bulk properties, right? Say the system changes its state, the temperature is changing, so many, whatever you can observe with your naked eyes, right? So those are what are called as macroscopic property change, right? And if at all you're not able to visualize what exactly is happening, which you're not able to see with your naked eyes, but you can only feel it, or say maybe if you use a microscope or any other kind of technique to visualize those changes, like those are what are called as microscopic changes, right? Now that is one way of putting it. The other way of putting it would be in terms of, say, calling as physical changes and chemical changes. Say changes in physical properties of the system. Physical properties, you know what are the density, state, temperature, pressure, all these things, right? All these are the macroscopic quantities which you can visualize with your naked eyes. Those comes under physical changes, right? Now chemical change, right, I am going to have changes in the atomic level or the molecular level of the atoms, right? So please understand, a chemical change is when I have one particular type of a chemical species gets converted into an entirely different chemical species. Okay, that is what is called as a chemical change, right? Okay, and you will be studying more and more about this when you go to higher classes. But for now, this definition is enough, right? So there is some chemical species. Through something, right? I changed it into an entirely different chemical species with entirely different chemical properties. When I say physical properties, chemical properties, what is the basic difference? Physical properties means, again, it's all about the macroscopic levels, right? Chemical properties in the sense how that particular species is able to react with something else, right? Okay, so that's the introduction part. What do you mean by a change? What do you mean by a physical change? What do you mean by a chemical change? All this put in a nutshell, that's how we see it. Cool, right? Now, what do you mean by a chemical reaction? You want to tell me, what do you mean by a chemical reaction? Or whatever comes to your mind. It need not be a perfect definition. That's not what I'm expecting from you. I just want to know what you understand by the term chemical reactions.
Sir, when a chemical change takes place in a reaction, it can be called as chemical reaction.
Yeah, so if there are two chemical species, right, now they are going to interact. See, for example, say, let me give you a case, right? Let me take a real life case. For example, say we are physically present now, we are virtually talking, right? Say you are in a classroom, I'm there with you, right? And someone did a mistake and I got so angry and I shouted at him or I shouted at her, right? Say the immediate response maybe that you feel so bad, right? Or say you can talk back, sir, I didn't do that, I didn't do this, he did that, right? So that is what is called as a reaction. I do something and you react back, right? That's the simplest thing which you can understand. Reactivity or reaction means to something I do, so some stimuli, right? Oh, so many of you said biology, so you know what is a stimuli? Some stimuli I give, right? And you are going to give me back your response. That is basically a reaction. And if that happens in terms of chemicals, right? So I have two chemical species and I'm going to put them in close contact, right? Now, because of this this is what is the stimuli, in the sense, this is what I'm doing, right? I am bringing them closer. That is what is the effect, or say the cause. Sorry, not effect, this is the cause, right? Now, because of them very close to each other, there is going to be some kind of changes because of these interactions. When they're close together, these are going to interact. Say interaction can be either, say they can repel each other, they will not be able to come together, right? Where they're very close and they're a little far away from each other, I can say that they're going to have some kind of attractive force, right? So because of this interaction, there is going to be something changing at the basic level of a molecule or an atom, right? So that is what is a chemical reaction, right? So I have two chemical species in contact. Due to the interaction, there is going to be a chemical change. That is how you exactly define a chemical reaction. Okay, fine, that we understood, right? Now, if I have to, what happens during a chemical reaction? As I told you, there is going to be fundamentally something which is very, right? You start with one kind of species, or you start with one kind of chemical species, and you end up with an entirely different chemical species, right? Okay, so that okay, now if at all you want to understand what is this change, right? Or say how a chemical reaction happens at the molecular or atomic levels, right? Now Dalton gave me a thing, right? Now one of the Dalton's postulates, he said that atoms are indivisible, every matter is made up of atoms, blah blah blah. So many things he told. One of the points what he said is when atoms are close together, when two different atoms are close together, right? Now these atoms will undergo reaction. Okay, that is fine, right? How they will undergo reaction is that there is going to be some kind of rearrangement which happens in these atoms. Again, I repeat. So the best way of putting it is during chemical reactions, there will be rearrangement of atoms. As simple as that, right? Now, when he told that particular statement, he really didn't have any idea of what he's speaking about. He just told that, okay, so obviously one kind of chemical species entirely converting into some other species. So definitely there will be changes in atomic level. That's what he said. But what exactly is the change? How is it happening? All these things were really not at that time the science was not that developed. It was not his mistake actually, right? So at that time the science was not developed, so he didn't know what is this rearrangement, right? Now we know what kind of rearrangement we have, right? Can someone tell me what is the rearrangement you're talking about in atomic levels? Or what do you think will be the rearrangement which is happening? 1 second. Yeah, so you're talking about rearrangement, right? So yeah, what kind of rearrangement you think is going to happen with respect to atoms or molecules involving in a chemical reaction? Again, see, when it comes to our class, when it comes to my class especially, I will be asking you 1,000 questions like this, okay? And it really doesn't matter whether you're going to answer it correctly or not. It really doesn't matter, right? If you're going to say it wrong, I'm going to tell you what is the correct answer. If you're going to tell it right, well and good. There is no judgment passed, and that should go with the same along with your peer mates, right? So if someone asks you, someone is asking you a doubt, that might be a good doubt, that might be a bad doubt, but that all depends on a relative scale, right? Maybe for you it is a stupid doubt, but for him or her it might be a doubt which is actually pondering him or her for a longer period of time. No judgments passed, okay? From my side, from your colleagues' side, colleagues or peers, your fellow students, right? No judgments passed. Okay, fine. So now tell me, what do you think is actually the rearrangement which is happening there?
Any new
Sir-
substances formed after the rearrangement of the atoms or molecules? Just taking
Okay,
place.
fine. Okay, someone else was trying something. What is it?
Sir, rearrangement of electrons.
Good. That's exactly the answer which I was expecting. The rearrangement is actually going to happen in the electronic configuration of the species, of the chemical species. That's what you need to understand. Okay, any chemical reaction for that matter, right? What will you see is the change in the electronic configuration. As simple as that. For example, right, if I just put sodium plus chlorine gives me NaCl. I shouldn't write it like this because, oh fine, you already know all these, how to write a chemical equation and stuff. Anyways, so I have sodium reacting with chlorine to form NaCl. Okay, so you see, sodium is a differently entire species, chlorine is an entirely different species. They are coming together to form again an entirely different species, right? So during this process, there is going to be change or rearrangement in the electronic configuration of an atom. We know what is electronic configuration: the arrangement of electrons inside the atom. How the electrons are arranged. I know we are going to have some K shell, L shell, M shell, N shell, right? So I know in K shell only 2 electrons can be there, second shell can have 8 electrons, third shell can have 18 electrons, so on and so forth, right? So there is going to be a change in the electronic configuration. That's the way to put it, right? So I know, for example, sodium atomic number is 11, so you'll write the configuration as 2, 8, 1, right? Now chlorine is going to have 2, 8, 7, 2 chlorine atoms. Okay, now what you see here is that both of them, Na as well as Cl, will have a configuration of 2. Okay, actually sodium, this will be in the form of Na plus and this will be in the form of Cl minus. This is an ionic species. Okay, don't worry, we'll speak about all this. Okay, so Na plus, how do you form Na plus? Obviously now you see that there is something called as an octet rule, right, which has to be followed, or like in the sense that for atoms to attain stability, right, for atoms to attain stability, they what octet rule says is that octet, OCTET. Okay, what octet rule says is that I should have 8 electrons in the valence shell. Valence shell is the final shell, the last shell, right? So like everything is just based on this. But again, if you go to higher classes, you will see that octet is not the only criteria. There can be other criteria, but eventually the rearrangement in the electronic configuration, that will happen no matter what, whatever be the criteria. Octet can be a criteria. Say you will learn other higher level stuff when you go to higher classes. but eventually everything is going to have one thing in common. The thing which is going to have in common is going to be the change in the electron configuration. Anyways, now we know only octet, right? So obviously, if I need to have 8 electrons in the valence shell, this 1 electron should be lost by sodium, right? And I have atoms to be neutral, right? They don't have any charge per se, right? So when I'm going to remove a negative charge, I know electrons are negatively charged, right? So when I have a positive species, I remove a negative charge from this, obviously I'm going to become positive. And that is the reason why sodium in neutral form forms Na+. It's like this, I have so many negative qualities. I take out one negative qualities, this thing. So I'm going to become a positive person. It's as simple as that. Right? Okay, so sodium will form Na+ because it is going to lose this 1 electron. Right? So now what will be the configuration here? 2, 8. Right? Same way, if I take chlorine, you see 2, 8, 7 is the configuration. The easier way is to add 1 electron. You can ask me, sir, I can remove 7 electrons. I can add 7 electrons. Remember one thing in chemistry, right? The chemical reactions or any chemical transformation will take place with minimum energy expenditure, right? In whichever path, there might be 1,000 paths for a particular, say from A giving B, right? Say A giving B is a chemical reaction, right? There can be 1,000 ways of transition, right? But out of the 1,000 ways, one of the ways is where I'm going to spend minimum amount of energy. Easiest way, the easiest path is what is taken by the chemical species to undergo the transition, right? So obviously adding 7 electrons or removing 7 electrons is going to involve a lot of amount of energy. So the reactions, we are not doing anything. The reactions are not going to take that path, as simple as that, right? Okay, so obviously now the easier way is to add 1 electron to this. So Cl minus would have had a configuration of 2, 8, 8, right? So now you see 2, 8, 1 became 2, 8, 2, 8, 7 became 2, 8, 8, right? So this is what you need to understand. Any chemical transition, any chemical transformation will have rearrangement in terms of their electronic configuration. Now this you see is an ionic species. If you have a covalent species, then also you will have a change in the electronic configuration, but not in terms of cation or anion. They're going to be in still neutral molecules only. But there I know I'm going to have in covalent compounds. Here I have transfer of electron. There I'm going to have
sharing of electrons.
Right. So here there is transfer of electron. So there I'm going to have sharing of electron, and eventually the term rearrangement in the electronic configuration is gonna hold good. Okay, fine. That's understood. Right. So moving on. Right. So if I move on, so what I have to understand is we understood now what is a chemical reaction. We thoroughly understood what do you mean by a chemical reaction. Right. Now, what do you mean by a chemical equation then? You tell me. From your whatever you learned, right? Tell me what is a chemical equation? What is the difference between a chemical reaction and a chemical equation?
So a chemical equation is the symbolic representation of the chemical reaction.
Yeah, that's it. That's the easiest way to put it, right? So for example, now what I wrote here, Na plus Cl2 giving NaCl, is actually a chemical equation. Is actually a chemical equation. Now, why is it a chemical equation? Now, if at all I want to write the chemical reaction in full words, I'll write it like this: sodium plus chlorine gives sodium chloride. Right? So there's this is what is a chemical reaction. This is also a chemical reaction, right? Everything is a chemical reaction only. But if I want to represent it in the short form, that is what is called as your chemical equation. Now, this writing is very easy, right? Writing it in big words is actually easy. Right? I mean, easy in the sense you don't have to remember any formulas, right? But what is the disadvantage is that it is going to be very tedious. See, this is a very simple reaction, so you're able to write it. But what if I have 100 reactants and it is going to form some 200 products? Every time will you be able to write like this? Obviously no, right? So just to make our life simpler, right? Just to make easy representation of a chemical reaction, do we go for chemical equations, right? So for writing chemical equations, people, right, you need to understand how do you write the formulas of the compound, right? How do you write the chemical formulas? This is NaCl is what is called as the chemical formula of sodium chloride. Na is the formula or symbol for your sodium element. Okay, now that we need to understand, right? So I don't know, in your lower classes, people would have taught you, right? Now for you to, like, there is no mugging up. I am not going to encourage mugging up of chemical formulas for each and every compound. No, right? Now you must have learned some ways to do it. We'll just summarize it up. What is the time? Okay, right. So we will just summarize it up, right? Okay. So how do you write a chemical formula, right? First and foremost thing, you need to know what are the symbols for every element. For example, hydrogen is H, sodium is Na, carbon is C, chlorine is Cl, fluorine is F, phosphorus is P, zinc Zn. These are the first thing you need to know. So for you to write a chemical formula, right, the first and foremost thing is that you need to know the symbols for the elements, right? So you need to know the symbols for the elements. That if you know, okay, that is the first step. Second step is you need to know the atomic numbers. Atomic numbers of all the elements, right? For example, hydrogen is 1, sodium is 11, chlorine is 17, fluorine is 9, nitrogen is 7, oxygen is 8, right? So like this, you need to know what is the atomic number. Obviously, if you know the atomic number, you'll know how many electrons are there. Correct. Atomic number is defined as the number of protons in a neutral species, right? In a neutral atom, sorry, right? It is the number of protons. Z is the atomic number. That is how you represent. Okay, so this Z is the number of protons present in the atom, neutral atom. Obviously, since it is neutral, obviously the number of protons and number of electrons are going to be same. Anyways, right? The second thing you only know is about the atomic numbers of the elements, right? Third thing is, obviously, if you know the atomic number of the elements, from this, you will be able to easily say what cation or what anion that particular element is capable of forming, right? Now, just now we saw one example. Sodium has a configuration of 2, 8, 1, right? Now, obviously, to satisfy octet, it has to lose one electron. So, one electron lost will give me Na plus, 1 plus, right? But for example, if I take magnesium, for example, it is going to have 2, 8, 2, right? So obviously 2 electrons has to be lost. So if 2 electrons are removed from this, minus 2 electrons, it is going to give me Mg2 plus. Same way, aluminium will have 2, 8, 3. At that time, for me to satisfy octet, it has to lose 3 electrons. So obviously aluminium will form Al3 plus. Same going for anion. 1 electron added, Cl, F minus, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, all of them will have 1 electron getting added. So all of them will be X minus, F minus, Cl minus, Br minus, 1 electron added, 1 minus. Say if 2 electrons are added, for example, oxygen is going to have a configuration of 2, 6, 8 is the atomic number, right? So 2 electrons are added. Now you will see that I'm going to have 2 minus O. So if 2 electrons are added to this, you will form O2 minus, right? Same way if I go for nitrogen is going to have 2, 5 as the configuration. 7 is the atomic number. Now in that case, 3 electrons has to be added. It will become N3 minus, right? So number of electrons lost or number of electrons gained is going to depend on octet rule for now. Again, that will change when you go to higher classes, right? Now, based on how many electrons you add or how many electrons you remove, depending on that, the charge will vary. 1 electron removed, 1 plus, 1 electron added, 1 minus. Same way for 2 electrons lost and 2 electrons gained. That's it. Now, if you just know this, simple formulas can be easily calculated, right? Now, how will you do it? Okay, I'll rub this part. Okay, For example, I want to know what is the formula for magnesium oxide. I think you already know. I'm just giving you examples. Say I'll take aluminium oxide. Aluminium oxide. Right. So from the name, what I can understand is I'm going to have aluminium present and oxygen present, and I have to write the formula of this. Right. Now you need to know everything. First thing is I know aluminium is going to have a symbol of Al and oxygen is going to have a symbol of O. Right. Okay. Now what I have to understand is obviously atomic numbers. Atomic numbers, if you know what will be the charge formed by the cation and anion. Obviously, the metal will form the cation and non-metal will form the anion. That we'll see when I go for metals and non-metals chapter. Anyways, right. So you will see that aluminium would have formed Al3+ and oxygen would have formed O2-. Just now we saw. Now what you're going to do is swap the charges. Whatever the number you have, give it to the other element, and whatever number you have here, give it to this element. You will form Al2O3. Okay, Al2O3. Right. Now this is very, very simple. This you would have learned in your 9th or 8th class. Swapping the charges. Now it is not, the sign doesn't matter. Okay, the sign doesn't matter. Only the magnitude matters. Right. So you will be able to easily write the formula. Now these are for simple compounds. If I have only 2 elements present, one cation, I say, okay, now what I have to know is, right. So when I say ions, right, now these ions can be, say, okay, what happened? Yeah, okay, I'm back. Right. So these ions can be monoatomic ions, say monoatomic cation or monoatomic anion, or it can be polyatomic. Polyatomic means I'm going to have more than one atom present. Right. Now what can be example? Say if I say sulfate, right? Sulfate will have sulfur and oxygen, SO4 2-. Okay. Now say if I say nitrate, right? Nitrate is going to have NO3-, like this. What now if I say just aluminium ion will just be Al3+. Oxide anion will just be O2-. Only one element will be there. Right. But if you go for polyatomic species, now there are ways to remember what is the charge and how many are there, but we don't have time for all that. For this alone, that I'm going to give you a list. I'm going to give you a list of all the polyatomic ions which are possible, right? And that alone you have to remember, right? And if you remember that, whatever you do for this kind of formulas, same thing you do. Whatever is that, say SO4 2- is there, I just put the 2 to the whatever the element present and put the charge of the particular element to sulfate and write it. Okay, fine. So that we'll do now. Right, I'm just going to give you a list of all the polyatomic ions. Right. Okay. Now, first starting with sulfate, we just now saw sulfate is SO4 2-. Okay. Now I want to tell you one more thing. Right. So whenever you see elements or say ions ending with IDE, sulfide, oxide, nitride, fluoride, chloride, like that, whenever you see ending with IDE, that means only that element is present. Oxide means only oxygen. Chloride means only chlorine. Okay, so this you can remember. Whenever you see IDE, only that element is present, right? And whenever you have ATE or ITE, whenever you have ATE ending with ATE or ending with ITE, what you have to know is that these are going to have this, whatever the element, sulfate, nitrate, that means they're always going to be with oxygen. Okay, whenever you see that it is going to end with ATE or ITE, whatever the element, along with that oxygen is going to be there. Okay, one more thing, then both of them are going to have oxygen. Then what will be the difference is ATE will have more number of oxygen atoms than the corresponding ITE. Okay, for example, what you understand is sulfate is SO4 2-. Sulfite will be SO3 2-. Hope you understand what I'm trying to say, right? It will have more number of oxygens than the corresponding ITE. Sulfate will be SO4 2 minus. Sulfite will be SO3 2 minus. Same way, when I go for nitrate, will be NO3 minus. Nitrite will be NO2 minus. Right? Now, what other things are there? Now, other than that, I have, say, hydroxide. Now, see, this is ending with IDE, but you see there are two things, hydroxide. So I can easily say it is going to be OH minus. Right? Now, what other things are there? Next is carbonate. Now, again, carbon with a nate, carbon with oxygen. In this case, it is going to be CO3 2 minus. Okay, what else is there? Say now if I go for some cations, ammonium ion is the only polyatomic cation I have. See, please remember, ammonia is NH3. Ammonium would be NH4 plus. Ammonia is the normal compound. Whenever you see IUM representing, IUM ending, that will be a cation. Sodium, potassium, zinc will be different. Aluminium, generally, right? They will be cations. Ammonium will become NH4 plus. Anything else I want to know? Phosphate. So phosphate will be PO4 3 minus. Right? Phosphate will be PO4 3 minus. Okay. So this much alone you remember. Now you will be able to write any chemical formula. Any chemical formula. Okay. Now, for example, I want you to write aluminium sulfate. Tell me the formula. Aluminium sulfate, ATE. Right? Take your notebooks. Write what is the
Al2SO4 thrice.
Absolutely. Right. So now what you have to, okay, please have you, if you've taken this down, I'll rub this part. So why am I concentrating so much time here is that the main problem students face, even I faced when I was a kid, is that writing formulas, remembering formulas, by hearting the formulas. That is why people hate chemistry. Right? Sir, chemical reactions remembering is so difficult, sir. 1,000 people have told me. Right? So that is what I'm trying to do. I am trying to make your lives easier. You do not have to remember, or you don't have to mug up or by heart any formula. Now, if at all I had time, I will tell you how these charges came, why only 4, all these things. Maybe you will study. Okay. So sorry, I missed the chemical formula for ammonia and ammonium. Very simple, right? Ammonia is the gas, NH3. Right? Ammonium, remember IUM, whenever you finish it with IUM, right? You have to remember that it is going to be a cation, right? Ammonium ion will become NH4 plus. Okay, so what I was telling is, why are you spending so much time? Because this is the most difficult part. All the other things will come just like that if you understand this. Okay, fine. So now we were talking about aluminium sulfate. So if you've taken this one, I can rub this part. Can I rub this part?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Okay, so aluminium sulfate, I know what sulfate formula is, SO4 2 minus, and I know aluminium will form Al3 plus. Simple. Now what you have to do, just flip swap, right? So now this 3 will come here and 2 will come here. And please remember, whenever you have polyatomic ions, right, you have to use brackets, right? For example, if there's only one, say for example, only one SO4 2 minus is there, then no issues. But if you're going to have, say in this case, you're going to get 3 SO4 2 minus, you have to remember that entire sulfate should be thrice. Right? So how will you write the formula? Al2, this is okay. You don't have to write any these things here. But when you go for sulfate, you have to write it like this. Put a bracket and entirely we have to put whatever the number you have. One more. Go for magnesium, or let's say, wait, I'll go for calcium sulfate. So again, we took sulfate, right? Say, let me take calcium hydroxide. Calcium.
CaOH twice.
CaOH.
Yeah, right. So you, by this time, obviously, you would have been using it so many times, you can directly tell it. But for people who are still finding it difficult, do not be lazy. Do not be lazy. You remember, like, you remember what are the polyatomic ions, and you do the strip swap. If you just remember the atomic numbers, for again remembering the atomic numbers, you know the periodic table. I'll tell you how to remember the atomic numbers when you go for periodic classification. Okay, fine. So we are talking about calcium hydroxide. So I know it is going to be CaOH twice. And you know, calcium is going to have 2, 8, 8, 2 as the configuration. So definitely 2 electrons has to be lost. So it will become Ca2 plus. So now this will come here, this will come here. So I'll become CaOH twice. Done. Right. So for now, you should not be able to face, you should not be facing any kind of problem with respect to writing the formulas of the compounds. Okay, now I have so many other things, like so many other polyatomic anions are there, or cations there, but you don't have to worry about it. This is enough for your level. Okay, fine. Now we know how exactly to write a chemical formula. Now, if you know how to write a chemical formula, the next step is writing a chemical equation. That is also very simple, right? So, like say, if I tell sodium chloride reacting with barium sulfate forming barium chloride plus sodium sulfate, everything you know how to write the for each and every term which I told, every reactant and product I told, you just have to write the formulas and represent it. That becomes an chemical equation. Right? Done. Now the chemical equation is also sorted. Right? The next thing what you have to understand is what are the other say other informations you can give along with the chemical equation. Say if I say chemical equation, it is not just that I'm going to have some reactants and products, right? Now there are so many other informations. By looking at the reaction, you can understand what is a reactant and product, but if not, there are ways by which you will be able to give some other information also, right? So I think you must be knowing it. Can anyone one by one, can you tell what are the other information you can give in a chemical equation other than the chemical formulas? What other information can you give?
Sir, the equation should be balanced.
No. That will come later. What I'm telling is, what other information? Say, if I tell you, say I have NaCl plus BaSO4 gives BaCl2 plus Na2SO4, right? Now, what you see is just the reactants and products. How can I make it more informative? Obviously, I can just balance it. That is one way of this thing, but that's not information, right? That we have to do it mandatory, right? But the other information talking about are not mandatory. But if you do it, it is going to present your reactions in a very, very good manner. What other information can you add?
So whether the reactants are products or solids, liquids, or gases.
Mentioning the states.
Yes. Wait. One thing is about the phase. Okay, good. And someone else was coming something. Yes. Then go on. Yes. One thing is about the phase. Correct.
Upward, downward arrows.
Okay, good. I'll be able to use upward and downward arrow. Can you tell me what are these for, Kanna?
Upward for evolution of heat.
No. Evolution of. Okay, what about downward arrow?
Formation of precipitate.
Good. This is for precipitate. Good. What is this for? Upward arrow.
Evolution of gas.
Good. Whenever you want to say that the gas is evolved, right? At that time you put an upward arrow, not for evolution of heat. Okay. Evolution of heat, you just put heat. That's it. Nothing else. Right? Okay. What other thing you can mention? Okay. One thing is about this, and another thing is about the arrows. Anything else?
When the equation takes place in the presence of heat.
Wait. Okay. So wait. I'm looking at you. Let me. Who? Okay. I don't know who was answering. Anyone answer, please.
Condition in which it reacts.
Okay. Reaction conditions. Yes, Harshita. Right. So conditions. And what do you mean by conditions? So the dot one would be the conditions in which the reaction will happen. What are the conditions? What and all can you mention here? I would say 3 things can be mentioned here. I would say 4 things can be mentioned here, but 4th. Okay, I'll let you know what is this 4th one. Can you tell me what are all the things you can mention here?
Pressure, temperature.
Pressure, temperature, then
light.
Energy. Okay, pressure, temperature. It's okay, fine. We'll be able to mention, say, if I use some light or heat, if I'm using anything. Okay, then
electricity.
Okay, and everything comes under energy. Okay, energy. Any form of energy you give. Okay, then one more is what I'm expecting. Okay, actually there is two more, but one more is what is I'm expecting. This I'll tell you what this is. One more is what? Okay, I'll give you a clue. Something to do with the rate of the reaction. How fast or how slow the reaction happens. Not exactly related to that, but something related to that. What is it? Okay, so I think you forgot. So that thing is catalyst. Is it not? Say for example, I write N2 plus 3H2 giving 2 moles of ammonia. What and all I do? I say that it is going to be around some 600 degrees Celsius, say 300 atmospheric pressures, and I also write Fe as a catalyst. Iod is the catalyst. Okay, so all these things can be mentioned. So remember, all these, the conditions you're speaking about should be mentioned in the arrow mark. Arrow mark in the sense that arrow mark is between the reactants and products. That is where you mention. Okay, right. And the last thing also which you can mention is about the pH. Okay, but anyway, you don't have to worry about it. You don't know what exactly is pH. You don't know how to calculate it. But sometimes you will represent it like that also. You'll say that this reaction will happen only in the pH of 1 to 3. Or say this reaction will happen only in basic medium. Something like that you'll speak, but again, not for your level. So pressure, temperature, energy changes, as well as the catalyst. All these are the things which you can mention in the terms in respective conditions of the reaction. Okay. Anything else? Phase changes. Phase you can represent gas, precipitate. Anything else? Is there anything else?
I'm mentioning the states like solid, liquid.
That's what phase is mentioned. Right? Okay. Anything else? Okay, that's it. Right? These are all the different informations you can provide along with the chemical equation to make it more informative. Okay. Say now, for example, if I have to take one reaction, say in this reaction, if I have to tell, say this is a gas, this is a gas, this is a gas, right? And obviously ammonia will be a gas which will be evolved. Right, so whatever the gas evolved, I'll put an arrow mark along with it, an upward arrow indicating that I'm going to have a reaction, a gas evolved. Right, say if I have something like say I have AgNO3 plus now see when I say phase, right, phase, it can be 4. Remember that it can be solid, liquid, gas, or
aqueous.
Absolutely, aqueous. AQ you represent. Nothing. When I say aqueous solution, that particular chemical species is dissolved in water. That's what you need to understand. Okay, fine. So AgNO3 aqueous. Say I react with NaCl aqueous solution. Now what will you form is AgCl plus NaNO3. NaNO3 will be an aqueous solution, but AgCl will be a precipitate. So I put it with the downward arrow. Okay, fine. So those are all the things which you can make. You can write the, you can include along with the reaction to make it more interesting. Okay, done. Next thing is any chemical reaction or any okay, sorry guys. Okay, so any chemical reaction or equation, right, has to follow certain things, right? It is not like randomly you can tell something, right? So they have to follow certain laws, right? Those are what are called as laws of chemical combination or laws of chemical reaction, however you want to call it. Okay, fine. Now there are actually going to be 3-4 laws, but I don't know how many of I didn't go through your book yet. What I remember from teaching 10th kids, that's what I'm doing here. Can you tell me are there more than one law or just one law? in your this laws of chemical, or do you even have this in your book, laws of chemical combination?
So we only have law of conservation of mass.
Okay, only one thing. Okay, fine, good enough. That is enough for you now. Okay, so there are actually 3-4 laws. Okay, one is your law of conservation of mass. The other one is called as law of constant proportion. I have something called as law of multiple proportion, law of reciprocal proportions. I am not making you offside. Don't worry, you will anyway study this when you go to 11th class, and you will be coming to me only, hopefully, right? Anyways, so only one law we are going to see, and that is law of conservation of mass, right? And we know statement, isn't it? Mass can neither be created nor be destroyed, but can be transformed from one form to another form, right? Okay, now what forms are we talking about here? We are just talking about in the form of reactants getting transformed into the form of products, right? So what I'm trying to say is that if at all you start with some x grams of reactants, right, that entire x, like in the product side, at the end of the reaction, you will see that there is again x grams of products. Okay, so there can be questions like this also in your board exam. Something like this they will give. Say I have some reaction, I'm just taking a random reaction, A plus B giving C plus D. Okay, say I had totally, okay, I'll write it like say 2 grams of this, and say some 8 grams of this are reacting. Okay, and I formed say 3 grams of C. How many grams of D will be formed?
7 grams.
That's it. What you have to understand is total mass of reactants should be equal to the total mass of products. So obviously here 8 plus 2 is 10. Here also it should be 10. How many other reactants you have? All put together should be equal to the all put together mass of all the reactants, right? So total mass of reactants should be equal to total mass of products. Right, now you will be able to make sure that this particular thing happens if right, you will be able to make sure that this particular thing happens if the number of atoms of each element in reactant side should be equal to the number of atoms of each element in the product side. Now, why is it like this? Is because each and every element, obviously each and every element will be made up of its atoms. Each and every atom of a particular element is going to have some constant mass. Okay, it's going to have some constant mass. So that is what is called as atomic mass of that particular element. Okay, so like I can tell you, for example, sodium's atomic mass is 23, calcium is 40, oxygen is 16. Like that, I'll be able to do it. Okay, so obviously the total atomic mass on the reactant side should be equal to the total atomic mass on the product side. When I say atomic mass, total atomic mass of all the elements which are there in the reaction should be equal on both sides, reactant side and product side. Right, now even though you don't know anything about the atomic mass or the molecular masses, right, now if you can make sure at least this particular thing is happening, the number of elements on the reactant side is equal to the number of elements on the product side, then obviously if one thing is 10 grams, I know 2 things will be 20 grams. With that calculation, you will be able to understand you will be able to do this if you make sure that the number of atoms of each element on the reactant side is equal to the number of each element in the product side. If you do that, obviously the mass conservation will eventually come out. Okay, and for this particular reason only we go for what we do to make this equal. What we do? What is the term called? That's it.
Balance equations.
Go for balancing the chemical equation. Balancing the equation. Right, now it's pretty simple. You can, I don't know what method your school taught you. I think this is the same method only. There's no different methods on all, right? Whatever you're comfortable with, you can follow anything. Okay, so let me take 1 or 2 examples. Maybe we'll solve it, right? Or actually, if I can do it from the assignment questions. One second. Hope you all have your assignment with you. Okay. Okay, so if you look at the 14th question, they say that write the balanced chemical equation with state and symbol for the following reactions. In that, they say that first one, solution of barium chloride reacts with sodium sulfate and water. You don't have to remember, you don't have to, in water means they're aqueous solution. That's what they're mentioning. I hope you're looking at the question. I'm talking about 14th question first, under that first one, right? So the barium chloride plus sodium sulfate reacts with water to give insoluble sulfate and insoluble barium sulfate and a solution of sodium chloride, right? So you have to include all the information precipitating, you know how to do. Say aqueous solutions, you know how to represent it. Along with that, you have to balance it. Okay. So first you need to know how to write the formulas for all these things, and then you have to go for the symbols along with other symbols, and the last one would be balancing. Okay, right. So what they're telling is I have barium chloride. Yeah, barium chloride barium chloride is BaCl2 reacting with sodium sulfate is forming sodium chloride plus barium sulfate. And they're telling first before we move on to balancing, we'll see what are the information you can give, right? Okay, now here it is aqueous solution. This is also an aqueous solution, and barium sulfate they have given to be a precipitate, right? An aqueous solution, this would be an aqueous solution NaCl, aqueous solution of NaCl, right? Fine. Now we will say my advice to you would be, other than hydrogen and oxygen, you try to balance the other things first. Leave hydrogen and oxygen. You can do it at the last. Okay. But other than that, whatever other elements you have, try to balance them first. And then at last, go for hydrogen and oxygen. Okay. So here we have barium, chlorine, and sodium, sulfur, other than oxygen. Right. So generally, I would prefer to start with metals. Okay. So we'll try to start with barium and sodium. Those are the metals here. Correct. Right. So now here I have one barium in the reactant side and one barium in the product side. No issues. Right. It is already balanced. Right. Now when I go to this sodium, I have two sodium. So two sodium in the reactant side and only one sodium in the product side. So now I have to make it equal. So I'll put 2 here. Right. Now you must have done so many things. It is just only one example I'm going to see. We're not going to spend so much time on this. Okay, fine. Now, so sodium and barium and sodium are already done. Now we'll go for chlorine. Okay, metals are over. Now we'll go for non-metals. That is, other than oxygen, I have chlorine and sulfur. Okay, fine. So if I look at sulfur, I have one sulfur here, one sulfur here. So sulfur is done. Right. Now when I go for chlorine, now if initially it was 1 only, but now I have put 2. So here I'll get 2 chlorine atoms. Here also I have 2 chlorine atoms. Again, balanced. Right. Now what is next? Next is oxygen. Oxygen, I have 4 oxygen atoms, and here also 4 oxygen atoms. So that's it. Everything is balanced. Okay. So like this, you check, and accordingly, let's see, 99.999% of times they are going to give you easy reactions even if they ask you to write the balanced equation. They are not going to trouble you with so much difficult problems and all. Okay. They will give you simple reactions like this only, and you try to balance them. Okay. Right. So that is about your balancing the chemical equations. Right. Now, next part of the chapter talks about what are all the types of chemical reactions or chemical equations or types of chemical reactions. Right. So we know.
I just have a doubt, sir.
Yeah,
should we consider sulfur separately or SO4 together, sir?
If you become really practiced, you can actually go for sulfate directly. You can do, right? But if at all you are not that confident, take sulfur and oxygen separately.
Okay,
it's up to you. It's up to you.
Okay.
Whatever you're comfortable.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Right. But what happens is, if at all say you have sulfate and say in the reaction you have some other form of sulfur, say if you have sulfide or sulfite, something like that, if you have, at that time, definitely you have to take sulfur atom separately, oxygen atom separately. But if not, you have only one sulfate, then you can blindly go for only sulfate balancing.
Okay, sir.
Right? But again, they are not going to trouble you with so much difficulties. Generally, they will give only sulfate or only nitrate. You can easily balance it.
Okay, sir.
Right. Good. Fine. So types of chemical reaction. We know what are all the types. Tell me, quick.
Combination,
Decomposition,
decomposition,
Okay.
displacement,
double
double
displacement,
displacement.
oxidation and reduction.
Reaction.
What? Oxidation reduction. Okay.
Oxidation and reduction.
Yeah. Cool. These are all the different types of chemical reactions. So combination, decomposition. What is that? Displacement. Double displacement, and at last redox reaction. I'll call it as redox. Redox means reduction in oxygen. Okay, right, fine. So like you already know everything. I think if you can just solve the questions from here, maybe you will be able to get the answer. Fine. So if you look at the first question, right, look at the assignment which is given to you. First question, right, which of the following are combination reactions? Right, say they have given KClO3 on heating gives KCl plus 3O2. Is that a combination reaction?
No.
What kind
No,
of
sir.
reaction is this? What kind of reaction is that then?
Decompose.
Yes, right, it's a decomposition. Please remember, combination means two things combined together to form one particular thing, and exactly opposite of this will be decomposition. Okay, so first one is not a combination. What about second one? MgO plus H2O gives NgOH twice.
It's a combination reaction.
Good. Right, it's a combination. So third one, Al plus O2 gives Al2O3.
Combination reaction.
Combination. Okay.
Combination.
What about okay. What about fourth one?
Displacement reaction.
Yes, displacement reaction. Because you see, in displacement reaction, one of the higher reactive element replaces the lesser reactive elements from its compounds. As simple as that. Right? High reactive elements will replace the low reactive elements from the compound. And obviously, you see, zinc in this question is actually replacing iron from its compound. Right? So you see, zinc sulfate is found and iron is taken out. Right? Okay. So the answer to this will be 2 and 3. Right? Yeah, option A will be the answer to this question. Right? Okay. Any other question is like that? Oh, wait, we didn't speak about this. Actually, let's look at the question number 5. Look at the question number 5. Right. Now they're asking, identify the endothermic reaction here. Okay, identify the endothermic reaction. I know what is an endothermic reaction. Endothermic reactions are going to absorb energy. Exothermic chemical reactions are going to release energy. But we cannot say just energy, it is heat energy. Okay, absorbing energy endothermic, releasing heat energy would be exothermic. Okay, now how do you decide by looking at the reaction? Actually, we will not be able to tell, right? We will, like, even if you go for higher levels, you will not be able to tell, but just by looking at the reaction, you will not be able to tell generally. It's very difficult, right? But you will be able to measure a particular quantity called as enthalpy. Okay, now you really don't have to know what is this enthalpy. We will be studying about it in 11th class, called in a chapter called as thermodynamics. Okay, so anyways, so you can measure this particular term enthalpy. Okay, this enthalpy is basically, if you want to understand in a layman language, it is the amount of energy released or amount of energy absorbed. That's it. Okay, now this enthalpy can either be positive or it can be negative. Right, now please understand, when you have a positive, now there are certain sign conventions we use in thermodynamics. Okay, I don't want to use some big words for you. There are certain sign conventions we use. Okay, so what generally happens is, whenever you supply heat, whenever heat is absorbed by the system, right, at that time, for that amount of heat, I give a positive value. Say if I say that 5 joules of heat is absorbed, right, then the heat energy value will be plus 5 joules. Same thing, if I say that, now generally the other sign convention is, if the energy is getting released, right? At that time, I tell that it is going to be a negative value. Say if I tell that during a reaction, the reaction has given me 5 joules of heat, right? Now, how will you put it in terms of numbers? Is that the heat is equal to -5 joules. Okay, so remember, whenever you have a positive value, this represents an endothermic reaction, and whenever you have a negative value, that represents an exothermic reaction. Okay, now if you look at the question, which was the question? Yeah, identify the endothermic reaction. Can you just look at and tell me what is the answer? Fifth question.
Sir, option E.
Option A. Option A, CH4 plus O2 giving CO2 plus H2O. There is no enthalpy value given, so you will not be able to predict it, right? Just by looking at the reaction, you will not be able to predict. So what will they do is they will just mention that particular. So you see in option B, C, D, they have mentioned some value, right? So you can see here in option C, if you see, right, this enthalpy is written by the letter H. Okay, now this H value, they will just mention whether it's a positive value or negative value, and based on that, I told you how do you decide, right? Now look at it and tell me. Now in B, what happened? In B, you see that H, whatever the energy value is given, is what? Positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive. So it is going to be an what reaction? It is going to be an, look at this, positive value, endothermic. That's it. Now if you look at option C, they have given the H value as a -92, so that will be an exothermic reaction. And if you go to option C, they have given the energy value or the enthalpy value as -92 kilojoules. So again, that will be an exothermic reaction, right? And first one, they didn't give me anything, right? So I will not be able to tell you anything about it. I will not be able to predict whether it's going to be exothermic or endothermic, right? But if you look at option B, C, D, yes, I'll be able to predict with the signs of the enthalpy changes, right? So only now I told you positive means endo, negative means exo. The only positive value I have in this option is option B, which is plus 392 kilojoules. Okay, so like this also you will be able to do. Okay, then okay, now there will be reaction specific questions in your this thing. Maybe if I can just go to, yeah, go to second question. What is the time? Yeah, we have time. So go to the second question, right? Which gases are given out when lead nitrate is heated, right? Which gases are given out when lead nitrate is heated? Now, let me tell you one thing. Now, there are certain things which you will be able to tell generally. Any nitrate, right? Any nitrate on heating will give me oxide plus oxygen. That's it. Okay, not only nitrates, if it's going to be sulfates. Oh, 1 second. I'm sorry. It's going to be oxide plus O2 plus nitrite. I mean, it's going to be nitrogen dioxide. Yeah, nitrogen, or it is going to be NO2. That's what you need to remember. Okay, so remember, whenever you're going to have a nitrate getting heated, right, you will form oxide of that particular. So if it's a metal nitrate, you will form metal oxide plus oxygen plus NO2 is going to get formed. Okay, if it is going to be sulfate, please understand that I'm going to form the oxide plus SO2 plus O2 will be formed. Any sulfate on heat. Right, now can you now tell me the answer? Now they're asking about which gases are evolved. Be very careful. We know.
Sir, option A.
Option
A, NO2 and O2.
Yeah, correct. Right, NO2 and O2. Now, for example, if it is going to be lead nitrate, PbNO3 twice, right? Now, on heating will give me PbO plus NO2 plus O2, but please understand PbO is a solid, right? All metal oxides are generally solids, right? And NO2 is a gas and O2 is a gas. So the only gases which are getting evolved is NO2 and O2. Okay, right? Very simple question. All nitrates on heating will give oxides plus oxygen plus nitrate and NO2 gas, nitrogen dioxide gas, right? Okay. Right. So now you need to know obviously the colors of certain compounds, right? So for example, copper sulfate crystals are blue in color, right? PbI2, lead iodide, will be an yellow precipitate, right? So all these informations are given in your book. So if you can just read your book properly, all the colors will remove. Again, this is a little thing which you have to remember about the colors. Sometimes, like that's why chemistry as a thing, it should not be studied, it should be worked out in laboratories, right? So even though how much ever you study, how much ever you remember, but that physical visualization is actually very, very important. Okay, so this physical visual, once you see, like rather than hearing something, right? But if you see something, that you will be able to remember for a longer time. But in our country, really, that is not how we do it. Sad thing, right? Anyways, right, now go for now the fourth question. If you just see, right, or we'll look, maybe we'll fine, we'll go to the fourth question. 4 test tubes containing solutions 1, 2, 3, 4 are shown below along with their colors. What is the color of the zinc sulfate? That's what they're asking. What is the color of zinc sulfate?
Colorless.
Colorless.
White. Okay, colorless, or it's white in color. Okay, so that's the answer to this question, right? Okay, right, and what I have to speak about is this displacement. Okay, we talked about the displacement reaction. Okay, so for you to understand displacement, what you need to know before that is what is called as your reactivity series. And what is called as your reactivity series. Okay, reactivity series is I'm gonna give you an ascending order or descending order of all the elements along with their reactivities, which is more reactive, which is less reactive. Okay, fine. So generally potassium is more reactive than sodium. Then comes magnesium, or actually first is calcium, magnesium, lithium, then comes aluminium, iron, then comes copper, no, hydrogen, then copper. Okay, actually, before this thing, lithium, you don't have to include it. Magnesium, zinc, aluminium, iron, hydrogen, copper. So this you have to remember. Again, now, if you know periodic table, guys, if you know periodic table, please remember this, right? Down the group, reactivity increases, right? And along the period, from left to right of the period, you know what is the group, you know what is the period. That's why I'm telling you this. Along the period, from left to right, reactivity decreases. Okay, now this, if you can remember, this will eventually come out. Okay, down the group, reactivity increases, and along the period, reactivity decreases. This, if you can remember, you don't have to remember this entire thing. Or if you don't want to remember this, then you can remember this. Okay, now if I ask you this question, I have now generally, if I have metals reacting with acids, right, I am going to form whatever the salt plus hydrogen gas is going to get evolved. That I know, right? Now, if I put copper reacting with HCl, what will happen? Copper.
Reaction will not take place.
Absolutely, right? Reaction will not take place. Why? Because copper is less reactive than hydrogen. You can see here, this will not give me any product. Even if you go for 1000 degrees Celsius, right? You are not going to get any product out. Okay, fine. So other question, any interesting question if I have to see? Okay, now I have to, that is about displacement. Double displacement obviously is going to only cation changes, displacement, cation and anion changes, it is going to be double displacement, that we know, right? And maybe I will speak something about the oxidation and reduction part. Okay, so we know what is oxidation reduction, right? You like you'll see more definitions when you go to higher classes, but for now, oxidation is addition of oxygen or removal of hydrogen. That's the only thing you know. Or in terms of electrons, if I have to speak, removal of electron is what is oxidation. But again, you don't have to remember that, right? So all I'll give you, oxidation would be addition of oxygen, removal of hydrogen, or it is loss of electron. And your reduction is going to be exactly opposite: addition of hydrogen or removal of oxygen or gain of electrons. Right. Now, what you have to understand is there is something, maybe the marker is done. I'll take a different marker. Okay. Now, in a reaction, in a redox reaction, now one thing you have to understand, people, I don't know what your school taught you, or I think some things which are there in NCERT are absolutely wrong. Okay. Now, what is wrong is, they say that, for example, carbon. Okay. Now tell me, this reaction is what reaction? I mean, oxidation or reduction?
Oxidation, sir.
Okay, that's what we have been taught, right? But it is not like that. Any reaction for that matter will always be a redox reaction. So what I'm trying to tell you is that, right, if oxidation happens, reduction also happens simultaneously. There is no one reaction where oxidation alone happens, or there is no one particular reaction where only reduction happens. That's a very wrong thing people teach you. Okay, now how will I tell that this is a redox reaction? That means I should prove it to you that both oxidation as well as reduction happens here, right? Now you can tell that you cannot tell entire reaction is oxidation or reduction. You can speak with respect to a particular chemical species. For example, in this case, carbon is getting oxidized. I don't deny, because in the product side, you see 2 carbon, I have added oxygen. Correct. Now, maybe now you'll not be able to understand, but if you talk in terms of electrons, right, oxygen is actually getting reduced. Wow. Now I told you gain of electrons would be reduction, right? Oxygen definitely would have gained 2 more electrons to form this compound, right? So gain of electron is reduction actually, right? So this is a very common mistake even teachers do. Big like very learned teachers do this, but this is a very wrong thing to say, right? But I don't know, in your book also they would have given like this only, but please follow the book, but have the knowledge, right? No reaction will be specifically for oxidation or reduction. Is always going to be redox reaction. If there is reduction happening, there will somehow be oxidation happening. Okay, fine. So that noted, right? So there, what you have to understand is there are certain terms which you need to understand. There is something called as oxidant and reductant, right? And I have something called as oxidizing or reducing agents. Okay, oxidant, reductant, oxidizing or reducing agent. If you understand these terms, again questions can come from this. Okay, now oxidant is the species which is getting oxidized. Same way, reductant is the one which is getting reduced. That is understood. Whichever is undergoing oxidation is the oxidant, whichever is undergoing reduction is what is reductant. Right. Now, generally, when I go to this agents are generally LIC agent is going to help me get a LIC policy. Say some other agent is going to give me get for that particular thing. Right. So any agent, what you understand is they are going to help in getting us something. Right. Now, when I say oxidizing agent, they are going to help in oxidation. And whenever I say reducing agent, they are going to help in reduction. The oxidizing agents oxidize some other species. Reducing agent reduce some other species. Right. Now the question is, how are they doing it? Right? How are they doing it? And the answer to this question is sacrifice. For example, what I'm trying to tell you is that if something you call it as an oxidizing agent, It will be oxidizing something else by reducing itself. Okay, so and same way, when I say reducing agent, it is going to reduce something else, no doubt about it. But how is it going to do? Is that it is going to oxidize itself by the process of reducing something else, right? Or if I have to put it properly, oxidizing agent will undergo reduction. Reducing agent will undergo oxidation. That's it. Okay. So in this case, what I understand is carbon is undergoing oxidation, right? So carbon will be a reducing agent, right? Oxygen is undergoing reduction. So this will be definitely, oh yeah, oxygen is undergoing reduction. So this will be my oxidizing agent. Okay, which is undergoing oxidation, reducing agent, which is undergoing reduction, oxidation agent. As simple as that. Right. So speaking more about this oxidation reduction, there can be natural phenomena, right, which will involve this oxidation reduction. I know what I think you know what I'm speaking about. One thing is corrosion, the other thing is rancidity. Right. So corrosion is basically what? Corrosion is oxidation. I have certain metals, right? They will be a little reactive with oxygen, right? So they will react with oxygen to form a compound, and that compound is really not going to be useful for me. It is actually going to degrade the metal, right? So we know one of the forms of corrosion is what is rusting, right? So a famous equation for rusting, right? Rusting of iron, right? Say Fe, right? When it is open to atmosphere, O2, and obviously you need to have some amount of moisture present, right? So you will form Fe2O3 dot XH2O. This is what is the formula for rust, right? So oxidation is a good thing as well as a bad thing. In this case, it is bad. Oxidation is good for us. Basically, by oxidation only we're able to digest the food. By oxidation only our hemoglobin is going to carry the blood. So yeah, so many ways oxidation is good, but so many ways oxidation can be bad also, in the form of corrosion, rusting, rancidity. Again, open when you're gonna keep open the food particles open to the atmosphere, they will react with oxygen, get oxidized, and that's what I call it as spoiled food, right? Or I'll say it became rancid. Rancid, I don't know, in Tamil they say usi pochu, right? So that's what they call it, right? When a food substance is getting oxidized, they will lose their whatever the properties, and they're going to smell bad, they're going to taste bad, there's going to be some bacteria involved in that. So anything put together, all these things put together is what is called as your rancid substances, and the phenomena is what is called as rancidity. If I want to ask you what is rancidity, tell them that it is oxidation of food particles for them to get spoiled. That's it. Okay. Now, is there anything else in this chapter? What is the time? Okay, it's 8:10, guys. Okay, now maybe I'll give you 10 more minutes. Okay. Do you want to know any? I think the chapter is over. I have covered everything. Okay. Now tell me, from this particular assignment, do you have any doubt? You can ask me. I'll give you 5 minutes. You want me to we'll solve any specific questions you ask for? Yeah.
No, sir. All clear.
All clear. Okay. Anybody else has any question, people? You actually, yeah, it should be easy at this time because you're going to write the board exam. You must have already studied it. Okay. But still, like, I have whatever help I could help you in this, right? I think I have covered all my portions in this particular chapter, right? What I did today, I'm still thinking, did I anything I did not clear? I did not cover? I don't think so. Everything is covered. Okay. So if you have doubts, you can ask me, people. Right, though, I mean, I'm just seeing questions like balancing, and remember, there is something. Okay, this I have to tell you: baking powder, baking soda, right? Quicklime, slaked lime, all these things, formulas you need to know. Okay, baking soda is NaHCO3. Right, baking soda is, am I right? Yeah.
NaHCO3. Twice it will come, I think, sir. NaHCO3 twice.
No. It is NaHCO3 only. We know bicarbonate ion is HCO3 minus, and it is Na plus. So one here, one here. It's correct.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Right. So baking soda is actually baking soda is it's NaOH plus in the presence of water is what is baking. Oh, no, correct. Baking soda is this, right? When I say baking powder, right? Baking powder is this plus water is what is your baking powder. Okay. Now, same way I have washing soda and washing powder. Washing soda is Na2CO3. Okay. And what other things? Quicklime. Quicklime is CaO. Right. Now there's something called as Slaked lime. Slaked lime is CaOH twice. Calcium hydroxide. Right. There's a very famous question. Lime water turning milky. Lime water turning milky. We must know the reaction. CaO. No, sorry. Correct? Am I correct? Lime water is CaOH. Oh wait. Oh yeah, correct. Sorry. So you have CaO plus CO2. Oh no. Am I doing it correctly? It's the opposite reaction of this. It's been so long since I spoke about all these things. I'm talking about very big things in chemistry, and I forgot small things. Guys, tell me what is the thing for lime water turning milky reaction? Can you tell me? Lime water turning milky. Yeah.
CaOH twice plus
CaOH twice plus
CO2.
Give CaCO3. Okay, I remember. Okay, good. Now this is what is turning the milky. This is what is turning the lime water milky. Okay, now I remember. Thank you. Right. So these kind of reactions, specific name reactions like lime water turning milky or corrosion, rusting of iron, all these further things you have to know. And they'll say that magnesium burns in oxygen. Remember, any metal with oxygen will always form metal oxide. Okay, right? So those are the things that you need to know. So quicklime is CaO, slaked lime. Okay, slaked lime is CaOH twice. Right? Slaked lime is also called as lime water. Right? Lime water or slaked lime both represents your CaOH twice. Okay, and I think that's it. Yeah. Oh yeah, bleaching powder. Right? Bleaching powder formula you need to know. I think are these things eliminated from your syllabus, because I'm not seeing any questions regarding that.
I don't think we've solved any questions related to bleaching powder either.
Yeah. That's what. I think it is. I think.
Chapter.
Huh?
Next chapter, acid, bases, and solids.
Okay. Fine. So at that time we'll see. Right. So yeah, these are all the things which you need to know. Okay. So if there are no questions, I think we can wind up, people. It's 8:15. Right? Is there any questions you want me to answer? Okay, fine. I suppose there are no questions, right? Fine, we'll wind up. I don't know when is the next class. They'll inform me. At that time, we'll meet. Okay. Thank you so much. You are really a nice audience. Okay, keep this up, right? Not only for this class, for other subjects, for other whenever we meet, or if you are not even go for next year, 2 years, you can stay with me. Make sure this interaction is staying good. Okay, that's what will be interesting for you, and that will be interesting for me also. Okay, keep it up. We'll meet, and all the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.